All right, everybody. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the World of Ability. I am Emily von the host along with Kurt Roskopf. And today we have Laura Phelps and Marianne of Waikiki joining us today. Guess over to you, Kurt.
Yes, I'll add that. Thanks for joining, everybody. Again, my name is Kurt Roskopf. I'm an ambassador with the Disability Channel showcasing abilities. And we have this collaborative project going here with the World of Ability Podcast Network. And it's powered by and made possible by Transform You Media Network. We have our podcast mogul, Marcus Hart, leading the way and making sure we have predictable success and a lot of tips, tricks, and techniques to help us get everything that you're looking and listening for and everything that you want in our media content. And a big thanks for all of the activity on our social media, Facebook, YouTube, and all of our podcasting platforms. It's all of you out there as our audience and fans that make this all a success and all worthwhile and growing the community and family that is the Transform You family. So the story told is that I come from the world of water skiing, and I had a passion to, and have a passion, but turned a corner about 8 years ago. I got passionate to go ahead and become a leader in the world of water skiing with the specialty on involvement for people with disabilities. And I enjoyed a lot of different ventures, a lot of different fashions of inclusive water skiing. It's somewhat stereotypical that with adaptive water skiing and adaptive equipment, there seems to be a little bit of a bias out there about it being for people with physical disabilities. But when I got involved, I just really made it an Everybody Skis campaign, the inclusion to water skiing program. And it's just really about where are we missing our approach to reach 100% of people. I look at what I call the falsely claimed mainstream world that we live in. And so our custom culture, genetic memory, traditions, everything that brings us to this point in time of human history is all with a bias and premise that we make the world work for 75% of the population, not as much being people with disabilities. And then we kind of see what happens. We just kind of, see, what the squeaky wheel gets the grease phenomenon provides, and it just, in my engineering mind, I went to University of Wisconsin, Madison, into their engineering school, electrical and computer engineering. And so when we look at higher learning and just kind of what they say in the higher educational realm, and then I look at how the world works, I just have to profess to everybody out there that can be a part of this and view this and watch this, that I think we all, 7.8 billion people on Earth, I really have faith that we can all do better, and not just in a kind of sort of as we can thing like we have since the beginning of humankind. I think we can remarkably take a quantum leap and just thrust the human progress within the next decade. I would say if we don't have ginormous advancements in the realm of global public inclusive infrastructure, universal design, assistive technology, adaptive equipment, and this whole realm of things that the disability community taught me a lot about in the recent years of my life, the last 10 years. So my story told is the first 40 years of my life were quite a bit different than the last 10 years of my life. And I'm here doing these podcasts because I prefer way over and above what the falsely claimed mainstream community provided me. When you look at that and compare against what the disability community provides, I prefer what the disability community provides. And I'm here to keep touting the disability community as the masters of ability. So we have a couple people here with life journeys that is just really going to serve the purpose in all of this. I look at it, everything in a year's time. We don't need to do this all in the next, 40 some minutes or whatever, but in a year's time of our programming, I try to round it out because I'm considering faith life, service life, lifelong learning, our civic duties and civic position, how we serve as a community member, and things available from our government and stuff like this, politics. And then I look at our professional circles. And that's how we met our guests, Laura and Marianne. We met through the Happy Neighborhood Project, the happiest place on earth for business people. So I'm looking to thrust into this happiest place on earth for business people and to make it the most accessible and most accommodating and inclusive business community on earth in the business realm. So that's what I'm doing in networking. I'm looking for allies to do that. And I have a couple of these allies here today and just really value the insights, because I think that's the key, is that until I had a more in-depth dialogue with people in the disability community, I just kept on going to the same old, and just bypassing all the opportunities to, again, make what I do for 100% of people instead of just 75% of marketplace population. People with disabilities are 1 in 4 people in the world. So when we look at 7.8 billion people on planet Earth, I credit 2 billion people on Earth for everything that World of Ability podcast could be about. I give the credit to 2 billion people on Earth who come from the disability sector, where I've had representatives of the community have real in-depth conversations, tabletop discussions, and advocacy events, and all sorts of just wonderful stuff that goes on out there. And some of it even gets to civil disobedience, adapt that exists in the United States of America, and that many people can see photojournalism of their activities in the 80s and earlier as well, but known mostly for what they did in the 80s and late 80s, leading up to the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so, story told back then is civil disobedience, and my family and I now are members of ADAPT. So we are just wowed and astonished that it takes civil disobedience to get the attention of our fellow Americans, and chiefly the legislators at Capitol Hill and the president's office and administration and cabinet. We just have people who are just showering the world that America is so great. So I'm glad we have Laura here to round things out. And so let's get into it. So Laura, you come here today. You've got a little personal story to tell from what we did in the green room prior to opening up this podcast and this video streaming. You basically were in what we call self-identification. So do you want to go ahead into it? It's called self-identification. I want you to tell the stories because you're sharing about how you relate as being a part of the disability community. Take it away, Laura.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kirk. And such an honor and pleasure to be here. If you had have asked me 10 years ago, I never would have dreamed that I would be part of the disability community. So I am actually a blind woman who lives in Toronto, Canada. And my journey is with sight loss. And I've had a pair of glasses since I was in first grade and had a high prescription. Going merrily along my way, I had, before doing what I'm doing now, 20-year career in corporate, in human resources, working with executive teams, advising them on talent and succession management strategies, and had developed a cornea infection about actually 10 years ago. And I thought nothing of it, went to the specialist, it cleared up. And in my last appointment, he said, "Oh, I see glaucoma. I'm going to refer you to the glaucoma specialist." So off I went and got the drops, and they worked for a couple of years and then they didn't. And I really started to lose my sight. And fast forward about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I crossed the line to being legally blind. So I see like an out of focus picture. And as I was losing sight, I was desperately trying to put on that mask of perfection and navigate my world like nothing had changed, where I was doing overtime, trying to catch up on emails and see my systems and it really, one of the change points for me was I was in a boardroom meeting and two individuals came in late from the executive team I worked with, and they both looked quite similar. However, across the room, I couldn't distinguish who they were, and called on one of them as we were doing a roundtable discussion, and I called that person by their wrong name. And I was so embarrassed. That didn't push me into reaching out for resources and making change. It was really when I literally hit a wall in my neighborhood that was under construction that I finally reached out and tapped into resources to help me along my journey. And out of ego and stubbornness, setting that aside, I'm so glad I did, because it just opened up a whole new world for me. Fast forward, I'm a transformation coach and hypnotherapist now. And I work with women who are stuck in their own lives in some way. So, I may have a physical disability. However, what I've learned in doing this work, there are a lot of limitations that even fully abled individuals put on their lives, just by their own thoughts and feelings. And I work with people now to release that in their life. So yeah, definitely have learned a lot, share a lot, and am up to changing the face of what it looks like to be a blind person functioning highly in the world.
Excellent. Thanks, Laura. Thanks for your personal story and beginning some of these insights from your life and what you're doing. You spoke on how you serve women, and so that's a little intersectionality there when we talk about the women's community, and then looking at it from the perspective of being a person with a disability, and there's truth to be told there. There can be challenges being a person with a disability, and then when you say with some of our cultural things in the global marketplace, it can be added challenges to be a woman with a disability, and so that's been known for forever. And so the world has evolved to have just a plethora of different formats that women get together and address this energy, and creating an energy shift to, I guess, in some sense, it's to permeate some of us men so that we can remove that bias. There's a bias on the ability side of things, a bias on the gender side of things. And so the world is going through a lot of healing on many levels, and all at the same time, and creates quite a wild experience as a worldwide community. But that's where I have tremendous confidence that so many things are coming forth. I don't know about the other two of you, but I never would have thought that I would be a captain of the co-host team for a Happy Neighborhood project 2 years ago. I wasn't in that place, but now I am. And we're all here coming from the Happy Neighborhood Project. So Marianne, let's bring in your perspective. So Laura's coming from the community of people with blindness, and Marianne, you come with stronger experiences and stories told from the community of people with deafness. You and I were just talking about tinnitus earlier, that you and I both have tinnitus and so forth. I do have hearing loss and so forth that I guess I might say mistakenly, I don't remedy that with hearing aids or anything, because they tell me how by my not doing that, my brain is affected because I'm not having that audible function taking place with my brain. My brain is just going to lose that ability. So that's something that I have to hold on to myself. So Marianne, what are your thoughts? What do you bring today? And I know you've got your book project and travels. So what's the check-in from Marianne de Mexico?
Yeah, hola.
Hola.
gracias, Kurt and Emily and Transform You Media and Marcus. And what a pleasure to hear your story and share the happiness and shift that happiness, Laura. 31 years ago, I was a case manager with mentally ill deaf adults for about 5 years in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I had the opportunity to interpret sign language for a deaf man over in the island of Oahu, Waikiki, Hawaii, for over 10 years. And through guided meditation at Unity Church of Hawaii, I asked what my next purpose was. And the universe told me I was going to write a series of children's sign language books with puppets. And I laughed. And it just kept coming to me. So if it comes to you, it's for yours to do. So I was walking down through the mall in Ala Moana Mall by the sailboat harbor there, where I lived on a sailboat for 10 years. And I saw this tree of Folkmanis puppets. And there is a chicken puppet where I could put my hands in it and I could actually sign. And I started laughing, and all these chickens and roosters are running around the island of Oahu and all over the world too, by the way. And it just started coming to me. And then I heard Lucy Lynch sing at our Unity Church of Hawaii, and she's got this amazing angelic voice with sound therapy, crystal bowls, different frequencies to raise your vibrations, also different vibrations to help with tinnitus, ringing in the ears, beta beats, all those kinds of things. And Suzanne Sims was there, and she's a writer. And so I asked Suzanne if she would help me write this series, and her knowing Scott, that, you know, this is what our life is about, and the challenges that we have and how we're going to leave a legacy on this planet and to heal this planet. So Suzanne Sims is my writer. And she does travel to the other side of Mexico in the winters to do Course of Miracles. And what we're doing this year is that I met Leon McLaughlin from Clean Water Foundation, and we are bringing filters to a village in Mexico that's in need for a clinic because there is a increase in kidney failure with the community. So we're partnering with them the beginning of this year. And I'm also the author of the Acts of Kindness book series that's written for the Animal Planet TV show Tank guys, Wade King, Brett Raymer. And this whale comes down with his family on a Hawaiian vacation, and he gets injured by a black speedboat named Bad Karma and loses his hearing. And Dr. Fingers, the finger spelling hermit crab, comes in to assess him, and he's going to be fine, but he has to accommodate, just like a person that acquires a disability, anything from a hearing loss, a speech impediment, sight, senses too. And so how is he going to be a new father in his community? And he is recruited by a turtle called the General of the New Earth Army to tackle the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, Kurt, there's several gyres around the world swirling with all this plastic, soupy messes, garbage patches. And these sea creatures in the book tackle it. They get overwhelmed. And they become the New Earth Army. So we want to thank all the military moms and dads out there for being of service. There are 450 million hard of hearing deaf people worldwide. That's worldwide, Kurt. And lots of millions of moms and dads coming home from being of service who can't hear their own children or grandchildren. And tinnitus, ringing in the ear, is an awful side effect from a hearing loss and vertigo. And it can be debilitating. I myself was in an auto accident after being a case manager and working in medical sales. A manager of a hotel drove her SUV through the wall behind me, and I suffered from neck, back, broken ankle, and a hearing loss and vertigo and tinnitus, and have had ongoing therapy. And I really appreciate Dr. Joe out of Honolulu, Hawaii, who does upper cervical, that just had to realign this misplaced energy. And through my journey over in Oahu, Mr. Scott, my deaf friend, and I became Reiki masters. We're into healing. And again, highlighting Lucy Lynch with her crystal bowl sound therapy. And we want to bring her to your event in February. February is you are having a Veterans Awareness Day on February 22nd to save lives for veterans who are experiencing post-traumatic symptoms or in general needs help and need a friend to be of service. So I'm excited to support you on this and create another app game. Each of my chapters of my books has an app game to learn the finger spelling alphabet as well as numbers. And my second book is Rabbit Acts of Kindness, No Bully. And Laura, in this book, we introduced 20 more characters for Harry the hard of hearing rabbit. And he's accompanied by a chicken named Chelsea, the courageous sign language chicken. And in his classroom, he has a classmate named Faith, and she is blind Faith. And she has a service cane spider named Sugar. And this is how we sign Sugar, Kurt. Sugar from the chin. So they are all classmates, and these are glove puppets that you can put your hand in, and you can also finger spell with them. So these are going to be great educational tools for our youth or all ages of the heart, Kurt. Everybody likes to play with puppets, right? You have some puppets I sent you with the books. So you can visit my website, www.actsofkindness.website. That's actsofkindness.website.com. And we are upgrading it with the help of Brian Roosh and his company. So excited with the Happy Neighborhood projects to network with him. And he's going to help promote the social media networking for 2022. Shout out to Dr. Liddy, who is federally trademarking the Acts of Kindness series. And I want to highlight too Trevor Gibbs, who does websites for ADA compliance. Now, Kurt, 31 years ago, President Bush signed the American Disabilities Act. And at that time, I was a case manager. So now my website and all business owners need to be ADA compliant. If not, there will be some hefty fines. And so we want to make sure that everything is accommodating to the visually impaired, the blind. And I also wanted to share too, Laura, I had a soundtrack song that opened up with Lucy's beautiful song, Ocean. And Trevor said I couldn't do that because of the ADA. A blind person could not know how to turn it off on my website. So we've had to remove that. So I'm continually learning. And also Kurt introduced us to Roosh, who experienced color blindness. And we found out that men over 50 tend to acquire color blindness. So he also did an evaluation for me too. So I'm working with these amazing people so that I can start off the acts of kindness in the right place at the right time right now with all this amazing disability awareness that we need to be up so that we can be of service to our community. So thank you so much, Kurt, for having me here. World of Ability, Compassionate Citizens, Prosperity Pathways. A shout out to Emily. You know, she's out of this world, and just so grateful to be here. So yeah, Laura, her name is Faith, the blind grasshopper. I don't know if I said grasshopper, and she's a glove puppet, and she has a sugar cane spider, service spider. Everyone wants to be of service in our books, Kurt. And we all need buddies and friends to be of service, especially for your event coming up. You want to talk a little bit about your event and how we can be friends and the different types of therapies that can benefit people from being in service and are acquiring these disabilities that may affect them, that they would so want to take their lives. You want to tell about us in February, Kurt?
Sure. We can all see quite a bit of details on it by going to the website, the number digit 2, so 2-22 to save22.com. So the numbers are the digit, no words, and then 222 to save 22. That's TOSAVE. So 2-22 to save22.com. And so that's describing the event that is going to be produced and facilitated from the Kalahari and the Dells, and it's going to be live streamed. We're going to have this podcasting going on, and it's going to be accessible electronically through Zoom and other platforms. The Disability Channel is going to be covering it, World Ability Podcast Network. It's an all hands on deck initiative. We're going to have employment resources shared. And so that's a key solution that we present, that if we can help people's vocation, occupation, employment, enterprising, home business, whatever it may be, those income generating activities to get money to people's bank accounts to help serve the otherwise economic barrier, or maybe you might say temporarily it might be right now, an economic barrier being experienced. So definitely want to serve those financial issues. And then, it's a day's event, so there's going to be a luncheon and so forth. And we're going to have a smash party. So now what a smash party is that people at home or wherever they are, coworkers can do this at the office. The company can figure out how to set up a smash zone. And so you got to figure you're going to be smashing. So we got to think when you smash it, where's stuff going to go, and think about cleanup, set it up for easy cleanup. And we have Dr. B is going to be smashing cardboard boxes, because she says she's smashing cardboard boxes because she wants it to resemble that she does not want it to live on, that we have a society that relegates many human beings to live in cardboard boxes. Like that's where they lay down. They lay down in a cardboard box. So she's smashing those to symbolize her call out to the world. Let's end that day on planet Earth, that nobody lives in a cardboard box. So that just shows you can do however format you want with our smash party, but it's 15 minutes of the smashing, high energy, good cranking music. My classmate from middle school is going to be facilitating this. And so great music, activity, high energy, get amped up, and it can be lots of fun, therapeutic. And then at about the 15-minute mark, it's a transitional moment in the experience. And then what we do is Glenda facilitates meditation therapy or a meditation experience and a calming effect, the tranquility, serenity, all of these things come into play. And then we work for 15 minutes to bring our energy level as low as it could go. To the point of if somebody wanted to go to sleep next, they'd probably fall asleep so easily. And I just tell people, tune into my shows, we'll put you to sleep right away. so like that. But we do also have a drone ball drop. The Disability Channel created an ally out of Niagara Falls, and with the Niagara Falls Golf Course, and they have a third-party business that has these drones, and they put a couple hundred balls up into these drones, and they're all numbered. These balls are numbered, and it's designed for over a golf course pin on a green, and then you drop onto the green closest to the pin. But we're modifying it to be an indoor experience in the Kalahari. We're going to have a banquet hall that can hold hundreds of people, and it's got a stage and everything. But we're going to have this drone flying around, and then we're going to have a drop zone. And these balls are going to be dropped over the bullseye target, and the one closest to the bullseye on these balls, we're going to look for the number, and the number is going to match a name registered to that number. So all sorts of neat things. We're going to have a benefit concert and stuff going on. And then we're inviting people between now and then. Create your own local or own household experience, maybe invite the neighbor over or whatever you feel safe to do in this time of the pandemic, and watching the interactions we have. But if there is comfort in that in any fashion, let people play with that if they want. Otherwise, we got a digital solution. People can be alone at home and just plug in and join. We're hoping to have hundreds of people around the world responding to, and it's advertised and branded to the old statistic of losing 22 veterans a day to suicide. The unfortunate reality is that the US, this is the United States statistic, for us in the US, it's up to 33 of our US veterans a day we lose to suicide. So it tells us that in our little corner of the world and in our country, it's a sign that we have a worldwide issue. I don't know if it's as dramatic as it is for us in the US, but we're getting inclination and insinuation that it is shared worldwide. So like, Laura, you're in Canada. As far as I can tell, other Canadians are saying, yeah, it does apply there in Canada. I don't know any of the statistics on the Canada side, but we're all just going on that notion, like our veterans deserve a better response. So let's do something about it. Let's gather on February 22nd. So Laura, with that in mind, with the work that you do, what does this event suggest for you? And everything I just said, how does that relate to your work?
Yeah, so with my work, so with NLP, excuse me, that's my dog, NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy, some former veterans have found relief in terms of releasing some of those negative emotions that they carry home with them and the symptoms from PTSD very successfully and quickly through different modalities. And I actually do know one coach who specifically focuses, he is a former veteran and peacekeeper, and he works only with individuals with PTSD and has a 92% success rate in this area. So in terms of helping veterans release those symptoms, frontline workers, symptoms of PTSD. So it is possible. And yeah, there is certainly an issue in Canada as well with former service members taking their lives. And yeah, there's more that can be done in terms of integrating individuals back from their time of service into society, into fully functioning individuals. And yeah, there's lots of support available that I think we can do and provide to them.
Excellent. Good to hear. So keep Laura in mind, everybody. LauraPheltz.com. Marianne, the biggest healthcare crisis known to humankind is social isolation. Marianne, you're on your mobile phones and stuff because you're always on the move. But what is that thought, that phrase, social isolation? Where has that been present in your life? Have you ever been concerned about somebody suffering from social isolation?
Oh, absolutely, Kurt. The deaf community. As a case manager, people, or I want to say my clients, had social isolation for several reasons. One, way back when, a lot of when a child was born and they found out they were deaf, the parents made decisions of what type of schooling they were going to go to. Were they going to go to the oral program and read lips, or were they going to go to a deaf institute school and be with other deaf people just like them and who use communication such as sign language and finger spelling and numbers? So with these young deaf adults, however they're getting their education, can lead to self-isolation, and which can lead to bullying by other schoolmates. And because of their deafness, their hearing loss, they may have a physical disability, they may have speech impediment and sound different. And deaf people do sound different. People who really are born deaf, for whatever reason, it can be genetic, it can be various different things, don't really acquire the ability to speak. And so they are back in the day, they were considered deaf mute. So not only that, they're being labeled, and being labeled that can lead to isolation. I'm different, right? And I'm not educated, deaf and dumb. Okay. We're labeling a person dumb. They think that they're going to isolate, or they will be isolated. So there's a lot of misconceptions back in the day that also lead to isolation. Now, people too, when you, for any reason, can acquire a hearing loss due to listen too much rocking and rolling, and later in your years, you're going to need to acquire hearing aids, and it's ageism and just the cycle of life. But we see our seniors be in isolation too because of dementia or any other cognitive type of thing. And really, a lot of it, when we realize too, is that they're missing out with communication, sound. Okay. And we need the hearing aids for the application. And you'd be surprised how people start to tend to interact. It's because they're missing out. And so that's really the anatomy of the hearing loss aspect, and also ringing in the ears. And it can block sound, and people just want to give up. And people in families or communities too, if someone does have a hearing loss, don't want to interact with them. They find it challenging and frustrating and having to repeat things over and over again. And so there's all just different types of ways that people can isolate. And I know there's many stories, especially with the military, with PSTD. They're coming back from noise-induced warfare, and there's millions of moms and dads. They come home and now they can't hear their own members, their family members, and children and women's voices are a higher frequency, which are harder to hear than the lower frequencies where male tones come in. So they're not only that, they're missing out on that. So things can be miscommunicated, misunderstood. Then there's frustration, or people just don't want to deal with it. They give up and they can self-isolate. So yeah, it is challenging. And especially, I acquired it too with my own personal ringing in the ears and explaining that to people. Then the pressure of the mountains and stuff would come in, or the thunderstorms. I have a headache. I just, I'm moody a little bit, and also the vertigo. So when I had the vertigo episodes, I would go lay down in my bed, and I retrained my brain that to create these app games, and now it's kind of easy and I'm enjoying it. So, but yeah, it's just having vertigo. Do I want to go out there? What if I fall? What if I have an episode? What if I throw up? I turn my head and here goes the spinning. So it's like, I don't think it's a good idea for me to go out and socialize with other people today, or go to a noisy restaurant. Why do I want to go through that? I can't hear everything. It's noisy. So I just assume stay here in this quiet marina with all these sea lions barking behind me. So anyway, but there's everyone is different, but these are just different examples. And also, if you do have a disability, relying on somebody to help you, relying on the handy van, and so that's just my experience with it. And we want to make sure that, if you isolate, well, there's people there who want to be of service, different ways to reach out and communicate. So, and now I'm helping give tools to families to learn finger spelling and the alphabet, and fun characters to interact with, someone to love and touch. One of the ladies at our Unity Church of Hawaii was blind, so I would bring in these folk as puppets and tell her who was who, what they were doing, and she would feel their eyes, and her eyes would light up, and feel their fur, and feel their legs. Chelsea the courageous sign language chicken, and Harry the hard of hearing rabbit with his big ears for hearing, and Eve the finger spelling bumblebee with her wings. So there's just so many things that I got to learn too as well. And I also know that there is I can't think of it, but there are people who do experience both disabilities such as hearing loss, deafness, and blindness do communicate in their palms of their hands. So they are able to socialize. Again, it's the community for us to come together to learn these other forms of communication. That's what it's really about, Kurt, being of service. And so I'm giving these acts of kindness series, these characters to be of service, tackling global challenges in the world, such as ocean cleanup, anti-bullying messages. We're going to work on the climate change book so that we can make all this information aware to everyone worldwide, and offering again that everyone to be of service, to step up to the plate and learn the 26 letters of the alphabet on your hand. How cool is that? How about the numbers? So I'm learning Spanish over here again, and I'm having a blast. Hola. Hello. Yes. Me llamo Mariana. So it's great fun. And look at it. It just put a smile on my face, right? Feeling that. Be fantastic. So again, I'm grateful to be here with the Acts of Kindness series. And we're going to help with that self-isolation. We're going to give these educational tools to the world. So grateful to be here. Gracias. Mahalo.
De nada.
And
Okay.
Kirk, if I could just jump in about the pandemic has absolutely compounded feelings of isolation. Certainly it's felt in the blind community as well, where touch is really important for navigating the world, and touch with the pandemic has been extremely stressful. So, different communities have different stressors with isolation. And we know from the studies that isolation is more harmful to our health than smoking. There are studies that show that. So, that bringing connection and finding ways to connect is absolutely critical. And reaching out and asking for support or requesting support, it's a sign of strength rather than weakness. So I just really wanted to emphasize that, and love what you are creating on the 22nd.
Thank you very much, Laura. I appreciate that. And yeah, in my perception, my worldview is that it's probably, or it really is, a minority number of people that, when you look at 365 days in a year or whatever, that, it's not a great number of people that are in what we might call a right place, and not because of a personal characterization. It's kind of how we can look at how the world works and how communities work, and how we lost some application of neighboring and, having beloved communities and stuff like that, as the world evolves and, takes on changes and grows, it's like anything, there's growing pains. And I think that's what it amounts to, is we as a worldwide population are healing from growing pain, because there's things that we take on, because yes, it does advance us, it does evolve us, it is exciting, all of these innovations and things that we can consume and participate in. But then, as it's like anything, it's like the saying is, too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. And I think that's what it is that when we have all these entertainment centers and, the technology, and you can sit in front of a computer like this, and you could literally wake up, maybe not even leave your bed, just kick up your computer with Wi-Fi, just spend a day on the computer until you're wore out, you're just mentally tapped, and you fall asleep. You could just literally do that over and over and over again. And obviously that is so unhealthy. It's not human, to do that, so this is where we need supports to say we can get addicted to certain things so easily and kind of take it to a level of excess, and then our life is not in balance. And that's where we see so much of a proliferation of life coaches and, all these services and home businesses, and, and the work that you do and so forth. It is a constant hygiene. It's like a human soul hygiene that we got to take care of what's inside of us, kind of in the part of us that gives us our feelings, what's in our heart, what wells up in our belly, and that gut feeling and all that stuff. There's, the chakras and, all of these things that are just the human reality that, we talk about, getting good sleep. And if you're having difficulty getting good sleep, there's sleep therapies and stuff like that. And then we look at water source, and we look at our diet and making sure we're, positioning vegetables. And when you look at vegetables, you got to look at, the quality and the characteristics of that vegetable, because they talk about how vegetables are losing, their nutritional, quality. I mean, it's still the best food because it's a vegetable, but it's not like, in some cases, the way it used to be, kind of the value and impact that certain vegetables out on the marketplace have lost some of that. And so when you look at all of these life balances, there's so much to be said, challenges there. And then we look at a sociological standpoint, we were speaking to biases. So I like here, Emily and I represent an organization called Prosperity Pathways. And, so it's interesting, when I was introduced to Prosperity Pathways a year and a half ago, that pathways terminology spoke really close to me, because I was speaking for several years about, that my work with, like, say now with World of Ability, is to permeate, our habits, to create habits where it evolves a larger macroscopic community or a worldwide element where we're creating an unbiased global community to just diminish all of the biases, because there's so many biases that exist, and these are biases that we have to talk about. We have to hear, and we have to cognate, we have to consider for ourselves and say, what are we going to do personally? That's like with the February 22nd event. I'm like, Marianne, what are you going to do on February 22nd that's going to make a difference for any veteran in the world, or to at least contribute to our global team of hopefully hundreds that, or maybe thousands, that will be responding to this issue? Or Laura, on February 22nd, do you have 22 minutes on February 22nd to, kind of hop in and add to the collective energies and the collective results and the teamwork around this? So there's just a lot of opportunity to create changes in the world. And there's the cliche of be the change that you want to see in the world. And so I think both of you, Laura and Marianne, I think that's what your present day journey and commitment is all about. Does it sound about right, Laura, that you're doing things today that you're working hard to be the change you want to see in our world?
Oh, for sure. And just to dovetail off of a few things that you pointed out, something that's foundational that we may not understand is that our mind, our unconscious mind, is the reptilian brain. It hasn't evolved in centuries. So it has a negative bias to it. It's scanning the environment for threats all the time because, it's waiting for that saber-toothed tiger to jump out and keep us safe. However, with that negative bias, it also feeds into what we're seeing now in like the news. The news is a fear-based structure. And one of the greatest things that we can do for ourselves is to speak kindly to our own self. We have about 60 to 80,000 thoughts every day. 60 to 80,000 thoughts. 80% of them are repeated, and 90% of those are negative. So even just setting your intention at the beginning of the day, when you brush your teeth, look at yourself in the mirror, and just give yourself some gratitude and love, that will set you in a better path than just going on autopilot. So I just, share that. It's one small micro step. However, when we do those micro pieces, they build on themselves and we start wiring different neurons in our body. So.
Very good insight. Yeah. So Emily, I want to bring you in here. We're here at the World of Ability podcast. Emily Gulmer, a podcast engineer and producer. So we're kind of coming up onto our grand finale segment here. And so Emily, I'm thinking the four of us are really going to culminate together and make an impactful conclusion here. So what direction do you give it, Emily? What's next in this, your World of Ability podcast?
Well, Laura, I just wanted to, and Chris sort of referred to it, but I just wanted to offer, and we can discuss it at a different time. It doesn't have to be on this podcast, but if there was anything you were interested in doing to help the 222 event or some collaboration, I don't know if there is, but
well, let's.
I just wanted to offer that in case you're interested or anything like that. And I think this has been a good discussion so far.
Yeah.
Right, Kurt?
Yeah, I would say that, kind of my vision in all of this is starting to be exemplified, because I talked about the bias of, like where I come into this adaptive sports. I'm an able-bodied water skier, and the disability community taught me, I can actually, like, I'm Kurt Roskopf, World Ability Podcast Network co-founder, and then I got TDC there for the Disability Channel. But, everybody likes that little comma and then put a few letters after their name, or somehow get the three letters there, like PhD and stuff like that. Well, the disability community taught me I I could present myself as Kurt Roskopf, TAB. Does anybody here know what that would mean? I mean, I'm thinking I'd have to explain it. Emily, Marianne, Laura, do you know what that would mean if I introduce myself as Kurt Roskopf, TAB? This is like Jeopardy. Anybody know? Oh,
Yeah.
look at Emily. She's got her hands going to the keyboard. I'll just say it's TAB, temporarily able-bodied. So that's something that, Laura, to what you were saying, you apparently, do I have this right? You at one time were temporarily fully sighted, so that changed. And Marianne talking about, stuff that with our hearing losses and stuff that kind of can kind of become more significant as age goes on and so forth. My father had autosclerosis. So I take Florical now to help the inner ear maintain itself, because otherwise, I might have I think it's the hardening of the stapes, if I'm not mistaken, the small bone in the inner ear. So there's these things that we have to attend to. But the thing that I like is that when I talk about adaptive water skiing, being a temporarily able-bodied skier and helping people who are wheelchair users and so forth transfer over to a sit ski and have some of these physical disability accommodations. I actually, like I said before, with water skiing, it's really for all people with disabilities. But, we kind of have the physical disability community brought into this. Laura, you're talking about the community of people with blindness, and Marianne, the community of people with deafness. And earlier, right before this podcast, we were with the Autism Society. Emily is part of the planning committee and has proctored me coming into the planning committee for the Integral Conference that'll be in the fall by the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin. And it's got the Zoom component where people from all over the world can come to this Integral Conference and talk soup to nuts, the life coming from the perspective of being a person living with autism. And then we think of the autism community is a subset of the community of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so all of this is actually just a conversation starter, because then you have people with chemical sensitivities, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, protects people in that community. So there's just lots to learn about, what has evolved over the years in that discussion, and government work, agency work, services being provided, and kind of how the demographics are greater than most all of us presently understand, because there's probably a small percentage of experts that really understand the span of the demographics that all of us truly reaches. And so it's like anything, lifelong learning on that. But Laura, there is also the Ontarians with Disabilities Act, really called the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, AODA,
Yes.
AODA.ca. And so lots celebrated there. When I look into it, Canada not only celebrates, AODA becoming a law in Ontario, but also I found it interesting. There's a milestone for when, I want to call it, would be a legislator apparently made a promise, or there was some sort of a legislative promise that apparently advocates were assured that their advocacy had won over, but it wasn't yet a law. So it seems like Ontario celebrates that promise, which I thought was really neat that there is a milestone of the promise, because to me, that really sets the stage that nations all around the world can look at that. And United Nations has the convention for people with disabilities, which the USA is not a part of, which I find it interesting. My legislator, my senator, Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, he says that we don't need the conference for people with disabilities, because if people want to know how to, have a role as government with the disability community, just look at the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that's just mind blowing to me. I'm like, this is the guy that represents me. He's saying like, we're all done. We did it in the 90s and legislators don't need to do anything more. It's just, is anybody out there from Wisconsin? Help me out. Help me get to Senator Ron Johnson. Let's have a more real conversation about this. But as soon as I say that, I'm hypocritical, because I used to be in that type of position. If you go back in my life 15, 20 years ago, I was sitting at the same type of complacency. Like I say, it's the recent decade that gave me this deeper grip on the reality that I was missing. And it took the disability community to teach that to me. And that's how I value these conversations, is the conversations I had locally and very happenstance type of opportunities. The probabilities set in, and I finally had those conversations I needed. Aha, huzzah, and all of a sudden all the light bulbs started going off. And just to think, like, I'm 50 years old now, and to think that it took me getting to be 40 something before I really had the clue that I finally figured out that I wanted to have had, but I was just ignorant to it in the first 40 years of my life. It's just, so now that gives me insight, worldview to say, this is a pandemic of insight, lack of insight around the world. And that's why I'm in media, mass media. And that's why I celebrate the Disability Channel, founded and headquartered right in Toronto. So Laura, you are in the breeding ground of great worldwide ideas. And I'm here to say that when I figured this out February 2020, when I was working on Global Ability Fest and just going about my business, and I stumbled upon the Disability Channel, I really was like, wow. So when I called them up and talked to the founder, Jay Stoyan, I'm like, Jay, you have me at hello. I got started in radio 5 years ago with Milwaukee Radio, riverwestradio.com. And I knew from radio that I wanted to branch off the TV. And I thought I had to create it. But here, this master, Jay, used to have a show following Friends on Fox. He already has it and is doing it. We just have to tell the world, the Disability Channel. Let's have a TDC of every territory on earth. Because even in Canada, he's been doing this for 8-9 years. Ontario is the only territory that embraces it and backs it up. What about all the other territories of Canada?
Yeah.
Or provinces, yeah.
Provinces and territories, yeah. I totally agree.
There you go, Laura. Thank you. So yeah, we are getting to the conclusion here of this episode. Marianne, this is where we get to the minute to win it. We're going to give you last final thoughts and takeaways. You got a minute to win it. Good luck. Go, Marianne.
Well, I just want to share with you that the marinas, sometimes we have a library. There's a lot of books that people read, sailors, while you're waiting to do laundry. And in the laundry room, I found a book called The Blind School, and I read a couple of chapters of it. So I look forward to reading it to the end. It's really about a story about a brother and sister go back to their own house that was down by the blind school. That's all I know. So I look forward to reading it this afternoon. Thank you so much for sharing, Laura. Great to meet you. You're going to love the new character, Faith, Blind Faith, the grasshopper. I can't wait to develop her character too, because she's going to have small acts of kindness, small acts of faith. That's what it is. That's what the little theme is. So mahalo. Is thank you in Hawaiian, gracias in Mexican Spanish, and that's it. Thank you so much, and I am happy, Kurt. Thank you so much for having us here. Looking forward to February's event and creating these app games. Marianne of Waikiki in the Acts of Kindness series, actsofkindness.website.
Very good. Thank you, Marianne. And so, Laura, same for you. This is our minute to win it point here. So you got a minute to win it. Any final thoughts? Takeaways, any information you want to share? 1 minute.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to diving into your books, Acts of Kindness, and seeing the character Faith develop. I do want to give a shout out to Purdy's Chocolatiers in Canada. They came out at the holiday time with a Braille box of chocolates. And it is a box of chocolate that has a Braille menu and a QR code. So making things accessible can be as easy as redesigning a box of chocolates. So that's what we're talking about, giving access to individuals who always had to rely on someone else to pick out a chocolate at the holiday time. So just a shout out to that, because it's so, so simple and it's right in front of us in everyday pieces. My name is Laura Phelps. You can reach me at lauraphelps.com. And I love what you're doing, Kirk, and looking forward to having a conversation about how I can contribute on the 22nd.
It's awesome about the braille box of chocolates. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so Emily, we are at time for exit. So let's box this up, package it up, wrap it up, and put a bow on it. Let's go, Emily.
Okay, I just wanted to thank Laura and Marianne for joining us on the podcast today.
And
As well.
You're out of this world.
Thank you. And thank you to anybody who has tuned in today. We're here every Saturday at 2 p.m. Central. And I encourage everybody to join us next week for, I'm sure, another great episode. And thank you for all of the activity on our social media pages. Over to you, Kurt. Mr. Roskopf.
All right, thank you. So again, this is a production of the World of Ability Podcast Network with a handful of other podcasts that take place in this network as well throughout the week, every week. And we had new shows unveiled for 2022. And we do have a New Year's resolution to double our show programming. So that includes an invite to everybody out there that if anybody is teased by the thought of maybe doing a podcast, I say, even if it's only an annual address, once a year, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but we just like to empower people to take advantage of this format of podcasting and what it can do for our social media interaction and the value we present to others that are Facebook friends and YouTube subscribers and all the social media platforms we're on. Sometimes there's nothing better than just saying it rather than trying to type it out. So I'm Kurt Roskopf, pleased to be your ambassador with the Disability Channel and co-producing this, the World of Ability podcast with Emily and with all of our resourceful agents like Marianne Waikiki and our guests like Laura. It takes everybody to make it all happen and make it powerful and impactful. And I think we did it again today. So we hope
and I just wanted to include thank you to Marcus Hart and the Transform You Media crew for allowing us to do this podcast on their platform.
Absolutely right. So there we go. We're going to fly away like a butterfly, the butterfly being the symbol of Transform You Media Network. So there we go. Let's fly away, Emily.